Hey, you're on Lunch Conversations with Randy and Teddy. And those who don't know, I'm Teddy. And the other guy over here is my buddy Randy. And today we have Don Masura, who is going to help us with the project that we're going to do today. We'll tell you a little bit more about that as we get started. But before we get started, let me thank our sponsor, Blackwell Captive Solutions, for being our sponsor. Really good people. Carrie and her folks are great. They're all about healthcare plans for corporations who are self-insured. So if you're a part of that organization that's self-insured or looking to become self-insured, maybe you need to talk to Blackwell Captive Solutions, because they help you equalize the playing field. So your cost is not based on what the insurance agent wants to make, but instead they're based on you being able to track your spending, track your dollar, and track price transparency. Reach out to Blackwell Captive Solutions, blackwellcaptive.com, and let Carrie know that Teddy Burriss said hello. Bam! I'm back, buddy.
Fair enough.
Happy anniversary, dude.
Hey, same to you. Same to you. 3 years.
Yeah.
It's going to be a good show today. We hope.
Yeah, it'll be
if they can round up some decent guests. I don't know. Yeah. We'll see.
We'll figure that out. A one-man wave.
Let me introduce myself, and then I'll let you finish up your to-do, and then I'll let you take over, Randy. So for those that never met me, I work for a company called Burriss Consulting. Here, I gotta go get it over here, Randy. Now I'm showing my back scene. I didn't want you to see. Boom! I work for this company. This is who pays my bills. It happens to be my wife, by the way. We teach people how to use LinkedIn as a business tool. We do webinars, seminars, one-on-one coaching, corporate training. We'll do it on Zoom, WebEx, and Microsoft Teams. And I did that all yesterday. I love to help people use LinkedIn. So, Randy, are you good to go?
Yeah, I think we're rocking on LinkedIn and Facebook, so we're good there.
That's a testament that I've gotten better at doing it.
Yeah. You're a quick study. So that's awesome.
3 years.
Hey, Randy Wooden with Goodwill Industries of Northwest North Carolina, director for our professional center. We're based in Winston-Salem, but thanks to remote capabilities and because we're just so awesome, we have clients across the country. So if you or maybe somebody that you know is in a job search, or even kind of thinking about it, or maybe you've got a child ready to graduate from college that hasn't found their niche yet, have them reach out to me. We're free, happy to get them on the calendar and help them get to where they want to go. So as long as they're happy, I'm happy. And you know what, Teddy, also makes me happy is getting together for 3 years now with you every single Wednesday. And so we're going to have a great show today, but we have a special moderator, or should we call him host, I guess?
Maybe we can call him a temporary host.
Temporary host. Don, whatever title you want to go by. Don Masura is our special host today. And Don's filled in for me in the past. He's been a guest on our show. He's a military veteran, great guy, and does a lot of executive coaching and a lot of different really cool stuff. And so, Don, we're going to dive into the show here in just a bit. Before we get too far in, if you have comments or questions for Teddy, for me, or Don, put them in the chat. We'll keep an eye on that stuff. And we'll try to work that in. We're going to have some fun today. And we asked Don to come on to interview us and some kind of behind the scenes kind of fun things that maybe you never knew about or what have you. So we'll touch on some of that. But Don, why don't you introduce yourself a little more detail before we get started?
Hey, thanks, Randy.
Yeah, man.
I'm Don Masura, and I'm the founder and lead project manager for the Threshold Performance Group. Which is a kind of a secret here in Winston-Salem, because we've been around for over 25 years, but we do a lot of work behind the scenes. And right now we've been focusing on recovery strategies for companies and individuals after the big shutdown of the last 3 years. Anybody that's got a business would agree that, man, all the variables have changed. It's a brand new ball game. And so everybody's recreating, and we've responded to that need with some very specific strategies. And our company's made up of really a family of brands. One is the consulting with the Threshold Group, but then we turn to Legal Shield and ID Shield as providing affordable legal services to people. And then 2 new programs. One's called Pinnacle Plus, which is has the 5 new announcing it new levels of leadership that have replaced all the old levels. And The other thing is, sitting there in the 5
Mhm.
stages of life and the transitions that we go through to make those effective. So
Yeah.
we're fresh. We're not off the shelf. We do a lot of things like that. And I'm happy and honored to be with you guys today because I was doing fine until you guys scared me and told me that the reach is actually, I think we've got a couple of folks from the United Kingdom now that key in, and certainly the West Coast, Washington, Las Vegas, LA. We've had folks from all over the country that have been guest,
Yep.
in this
Really
program.
happen.
And I'm scared. You guys are calming me down. You folks didn't realize in our prep for this thing, they had to kind of bring me down a little bit because I was scared. But I think that to the
Don's full of baloney, by the way. He's a pro. So Don, so you've done a whole lot in your world, and you don't realize it, but this is the pinnacle of your career. You're about to engulf, be knee deep in your pinnacle of your career before too long here. So,
well,
in all seriousness, thank you, Don, for
Thank you, buddy.
to help with this, and so we're going to turn to kind of have the tables turn. Usually, Teddy and I ask the questions and try to get a little more, a little smarter as we go through the day. But now we're going to be the subject instead of the asker. So, Don, what you got for us? What's going
thanks. And certainly we've got some things that I'm trying to imagine what it's like for the folks that are tuning in today, either for the first time. We really do have a lot of folks that were excited because this is the anniversary show, and they've enjoyed it in different ways. For those that don't know, Randy, how did you guys start this whole thing? Did you just sit there one day and over lunch said, okay, this is it? Or how did it evolve?
Well, Teddy can chime in with more on this. COVID sent us home. It was late March, I guess, of 2020. And so I was still on Goodwill's payroll. I was still working for Goodwill, and I still am, but I mean, it wasn't furloughed. And of course, Teddy's business really took a nosedive because a lot of what he did was face to face, and that dried up almost overnight. So a few days had gone by, and so I gave him a call, and I said, Teddy, we're both kind of, Teddy's got a number of different business interests, and one of those is helping job hunters. And while he may not get a ton of money for it per se, he does it out of his, passion for wanting to help people. And I said, why don't we do a show about job hunting? Because everybody lost their job pretty much, and the world had changed. So that's how it all started. But so Teddy and I, that next week or whatever is when we decided to start it up. And it was May 8th of 2020.
Yeah.
Teddy,
you shared that show video, Randy.
I did.
And from my perspective, it's ugly. It was,
I was thinner, so I mean, I've got the COVID 20 or whatever. It's still hanging around.
Instead of 10 or 15 seconds of me trying to get started, it was a minute of me trying to get this thing started. But it was also, and some people may or may not know this, but I used to have a 2 hour, I think it was 2 hour job search group that I did. And then I volunteered every Thursday up until recently. Chan knows this. Until the pandemic, I would go to Greensboro, 88 miles round trip. I'd go to Greensboro to volunteer at a job search group that met for an hour and a half. And I'd have my Wednesday show that I moved to a Monday, a Wednesday job search group that moved to a Monday. And I also had a Thursday evening I would participate in. And also I had another group that I would participate in for veterans. And so I had at least 6 hours every week that I would show up and volunteer in job search groups. And that all went away. And so my wife's like, you better go find something else to do, because
get out of the house
around here. So it made sense for you and I to get to start doing it. And it's become a big part of not only yours and my day and life, but also for all of our audience. I mean, we've had, what was it, Randy, like almost 800 people who have signed up to be in the audience of the show. And we typically hover around 450 people who are signed up to be in the audience. And we have a diehard group of about 15. So it was good to get started doing that. So,
I'll tell you something else too is and I'll be on the phone with either a client or a friend. It just happened just the other day with a fellow I've known for years. And he's never joined the show as an attendee, but he sees it through LinkedIn and Facebook because we're connected on those. And he said, "Oh man, I love the show. I catch it whenever I can, or get part of the reruns of it and that kind of thing." So a lot of times, Don, we don't know who's seeing it exactly. But it is interesting that it gets out there more than you might know. So if it helps, look, here's the deal. If it helps people, that's what we want to do. We want to be helpful and have fun while we do it.
Yeah. And if we can't have fun doing it, we'll stop. Don, back at you, Don.
Yeah, that's amazing. Somebody said that the founding fathers took 116 days to write the Constitution. How long did it take you guys to put the format together and say, okay, let's go live?
Yeah, it was. It morphed a little bit over the first 6 months, the format, and then when we got fortunate enough to have a sponsor, it morphed a little bit when we have our sponsor, and it'll probably morph a little bit more going future with some of the ideas that we are working on. But I would say within the first 6 months, we knew that was Teddy and Randy having a little fun. Have a conversation with our special guest, and close out by introducing our next speaker.
Yeah, the very first show, it's in the archives. It's out there.
It's on the internet.
It's just the two of us. And we both like to talk. I don't know if you ever picked up on that, but we both like to talk. And so the show was about job hunting. Again, everybody lost their job. So we sat down, I don't know, maybe 5 minutes before the show started and said, "What do you want to talk about, guy?" Right? So we did that. And it was all about job. It was LinkedIn, it was resume, whatever. We just babbled for an hour. And we thought, okay, well, now what? How many times is somebody going to want to have to listen to that every single week, to include us? I wouldn't even want to have to listen to that for an hour every single week. And so I think it was Teddy's idea. And I said, why don't we have a guest on? And we did. Oriel Hope was our very first guest.
And we made her career, didn't we, Randy?
Oh, it just skyrocketed from there. It was amazing. But the idea was to bring in other voices, specialized voices in certain areas. And hers was that of a recruiter, HR, hiring official. Then it had resume people. We had other recruiters. And even that kind of ran its course.
Yeah.
A little. I mean, if you want to do this every week and job hunt every week, okay. And then so we started to bring in outside topics, assessments, whether it's Clifton Strengths or all kinds of other, there's a myriad of them out there, or even bringing in people to talk about their nonprofit organization or professional development. And so that it grew to that. And then I think, Teddy, you were the driver in this one. He said, let's just pick a topic that's not even job hunt related necessarily, just something we care about.
Yeah.
Or is of interest. We've got a cryptocurrency person coming on later. We just did a solar power, electric vehicle stuff.
Mayor of Winston-Salem and superintendent of schools of Forsyth County Schools. And that has made a significant difference. We have to pivot the topics that we have to match our freaking fantastic audience. Otherwise, they don't care. And that's why I told Randy, we are not bringing the Rockettes on the show because I'm sure that none of our audience wants to hear from the Rockettes.
I don't know. There's always, I can keep trying, I guess. But so, some of this stuff's timely too. Next week, we're scheduled to have Catherine Perry back on, executive director with Leadership Winston. They're in their recruitment phase for the class of 2024. So she'll talk about that and some of the good that goes on with Leadership Winston and involvement in the community, and kind of a thing. So that's kind of a timely thing. And again, we're working on some other topics for the summer that are going to be timely as well. But that's how it all started. It was
Okay,
just the two of
well,
us. And then
as you say these things, one of my
yeah.
abilities is to kind of put things into different words. As you said these things, I
Yep.
think you've fallen. First of all, you've had a format that people need and like, or they wouldn't be, coming back. So
Yeah.
you are filling a need. And I sat there and I thought, well, somewhere between the media and newspapers are Randy and Teddy, because you have the information that people want to know about.
Yep.
It's helpful, and it's something that they use in their own lives, and they come back for more. So that format's working for you. But let me ask you kind of a different thing. You both have different personalities that, to your credit, has blended really well. What skills do you guys have that maybe we're kind of like in the background until the show, but then as the show developed, so did your skills? What kinds of growth did you guys experience personally as a result of being on camera every week for the better part of 3 years now?
Teddy.
And if it's silence, I'll change the question.
I got an idea. I mean, I'm not sure how credible it is, but I'm used to being the guy. I'm used to being the one asking the questions or the one answering the questions. And the dynamic of having a co-host, and Teddy's not a media guy from a career. I mean, this was a leap of faith for you, Teddy, to kind of do. Not that you can't do it, but you had not really done it a whole lot before. And to juggle all the technology involved with Zoom and all the, all of that stuff, all I do is sit here and talk. Yeah. But I think the dynamic of having two co-hosts being able to play off each other and not have one guy fill up the room, so to speak.
Yeah,
I think that's been that it didn't take a lot of getting used to. It was really natural for us, I felt.
And you and I have been friends for years. I mean, 2020, 2000, when you came down, you and I, soon thereafter connected. And so, we don't hang out together every day, but we see each other enough and talk with each other enough before the show that you figured me out and I figured you out, and made it easier for us to do this. And by the way, I've been talking to the Dot since 2016. I have a YouTube channel. The difference with the YouTube channel is I'm not talking to someone else. I'm just talking to the Dot. So I'm used to doing that. But Randy's right. I had to get, because I took on the technology role because it pays more money. I had to understand how to use Restream, how to do LinkedIn Lives, how to do Facebook Lives, how to edit videos, because every now and then somebody would make a stupid mistake and say something that we don't want to put out on the internet, so I'd have to go delete it. And that doesn't happen often. Usually we let it go. But also something else that Randy and I both had to get good at doing, and that is looking for and asking people to help us find a special guest. I mean, we're right now, we are working diligently for our target audience, for these absolutely fantastic people in our audience, to find either a Supreme Court justice from the U.S. Supreme Court. And I know some names of people, I just can't necessarily call them directly. I might have to ask their wives, or a state Supreme Court justice. And if we can't get one of those two, then we'll drop down to, another judge. We want to bring a judge to the show so we can let people discover what's the life of a judge all about. And that's a lot of work. So,
well, since you put it out there, we can challenge folks saying, hey, if somebody knows, contact Randy and Teddy, because we're that close. I appreciate answering that question, because if anybody's ever had a job in a group or whatever, that they were the person that was supposed to get a speaker once a month. And it was hard. They could go like a month or two, or maybe 3 months, but all of a sudden they would hit a dry spell and they didn't know how the heck to get a guest. Yeah. You guys have done it for over 150 weeks, and you've always had exciting people. Do you have a, let's say, a dream guest that it's like your bucket list of the guests that you'd say, man, if we could get this person, they would take my breath away, and I would just be silent for an hour. Do you have somebody like that that's on your list?
Hey, Randy, Megan Trainor.
Woo woo. A little behind the scenes there. I tell you, star power. We Teddy and I have talked this. I mean, Well, cut to the chase. I'd love to have Paul McCartney on here because he
That
would
would be
have
cool.
he would have stories, anecdotal stuff, what it's like to grow up, in not in wealth and be able to have the world as your oyster at age, 19 or 20 or whatever. But something I wanted to throw in here is that we talk about the word star power, and I would also love to have either the sitting president or any of the past presidents on, just to understand a day in the life, the things that go on behind the scenes, things going on around the world. I mean, they see things that would curl your toes that you'll never know about, but nor would they feel at liberty to share, probably. But so, yeah, Teddy, before I ramble on about the star power stuff, how about you?
Well, look, I mean, there's a ton of people out there that I think would be absolutely fantastic to bring to the show. And I've joked about Meghan Trainor, as earlier I was teasing Don about artists that some people may or may not know about, and I played the song all about that bass. And Don fell in love with it.
The bass, wouldn't it? Is that the bass?
All about that bass, yeah. All about that bass, yeah. And but I mean, so again, I'm with Randy. I'd love to have some higher level federal politician on the show. I'd like to bring in somebody who's in prison, who's dealing with what's the word? I can't remember the exact term. Falsely accused, to hear their story. Maybe get somebody off the Serial podcast, which I'm addicted to now, to tell their story. But at the end of the day, Randy and I talk about this all the time. At the end of the day, and actually I wonder why we wait that long. We should do it the first thing of the day. We need to make sure that we're bringing guests that can bring a conversation that is important, useful, entertaining, exciting, relevant to our audience. Otherwise, you don't give a crap what my ideas are if I'm not bringing people you want. Randy?
Is he lost his voice?
Oh, did I lose you? I don't have your microphone, buddy. Why
Okay.
you?
I was fiddling with the mic and it
What did I tell you about fiddling?
Hey, Randy, stop that. Randy, stop that. Put your hands down, Randy. Stop that.
Hey, you want to grab, when you're ready, grab Dale's first question.
Yeah, the star power thing, and this is not meant as a slam against any guest, but let's face it, somebody who is some consultant, pick a state in Minnesota, all right, and they do professional development or they do whatever. Nobody outside of their circle of friends and business know who they are by name.
Yeah.
But it's the topic that they bring that's of interest. So when we talk star power, then now you're looking more at maybe what I'll call local officials here in the local area, business leaders, that kind of thing. And they're more star power-ish here in the triad. But if we're able, to Teddy's point, find somebody who's at the national level, whether it's politics or globally, like a guy like McCartney or something, then that just ratchets it up, because now you have not only star power, but you have content that would be compelling.
And there's another piece to it as well that Randy and I have to pay attention to that is not as important to our audience, but we know we need to pay attention to it. And that's what's called reach. When we can bring in someone wherever they're from, we can get to more people through them, then that increases our audience. And that's important to do. By the way, a stat, Randy, we had a brand new stat, and most of you may not care about this. I wonder if anybody's listening to the show on a podcast. If you are listening to through the podcast, please message me or message Randy and let us know you have. But Randy, we just surpassed 1,000 downloads of our podcast.
Yep. Yeah.
So that's a great milestone for us. Randy?
Yeah. Dale had a comment on here, and I'll paraphrase it. Our show is light. It's conversational. We take our stab at humor wherever we get the chance.
Yeah.
But there's very little pushback or what do you mean by that kind of, or challenging of the guest. I can remember we had I won't mention the guest name, but we had a resume writer on here early in the show, and there are different ways to slice and dice a resume. Yeah. And the way that our guest presented things, shall we say, differed from how I would present them. And I think, Teddy, you remember what I'm talking about. And that's one of the few times, but that's a subjective thing. Resumes, the words I use are, it depends. And it depends on a lot of different things. Yeah. But by and large, so Dale's question was maybe bring in speakers, topics where there's not a lot of confrontation, but a little more, I'll call it probing.
A different perspective.
Yeah. And I think we could do that. But by and large, we're here to inform and engage in a light conversational tone. And we tell our guests that, at least I know I do. And that could also be one of the reasons that we've had one or two maybe who have had to bow out, but it's never been because I'm afraid to go on, or I don't know what to expect. Yeah. They know the show enough now, and so for them it's a fun thing. But we're here more so to inform.
Yeah, if we went controversial, Randy, we'd have to crank up our ad rate significantly.
Yeah.
And don't tell Blackwell Captain Solutions I said that. They know I'm joking. So
yeah, and the other one, there was a comment too about the local guests versus more national. And I don't have a list top of my head, Teddy. We had somebody from Germany, we've had Israel, Canada.
I do have the list. I mean, we've had people from Colorado, Oklahoma. I mean, all over the freaking place. New York, Texas. So, I mean, yeah, we reach into the network that we have. But Randy's and my network keeps growing, and we have no objection to going global at all.
Yeah, and we've got we're going to have one from Washington, D.C. coming in. We've had him from New York. We even had a comedian. Was he on a cruise ship at the time?
He was.
Was he down in the Bahamas, or he was an entertainer on a cruise ship?
Yeah.
Teddy, how did you find that guy? Anyway, I don't know. Anyway,
I don't know. And somebody told me to meet this guy. I told that guy to meet you. So
we got him out of bed, because he stayed up late doing his show and stuff. He got out of bed time for us, and anyway, that was kind of
you never
funny.
Know who's coming through town. I know somebody said at one time that the great group Alabama, when they would come through the Triad, never stayed there. They stayed out in King. And it was perfect for them. They would stay at a motel. People knew them there, and they could have a nice dinner without a problem. And one of the things that, my role was, I kind of represent the voice of the audience. And although you guys are very distinctive, you got your special set of skills, your show seems to be really all about the audience. The audience is the key, getting folks informed and getting folks having relevancy and stuff like that. Is that one of your guiding principles in the show?
Well, look at the late night shows with the late night comedians. What's their names? There's two of them that come to mind. Look at Johnny Carson. Look at who are the other guys that that all these famous shows. Wheel of Fortune and those shows. They are very clearly in tune with and speaking. Look, they're not speaking to the people in their chair beside them. They're speaking to the audience, because again, if we don't have an audience, we don't have a show. So yes, Randy and I decided a long time ago that there are three people that are important, and it doesn't include Randy and Teddy. Sorry, Randy. I think you know this. Our audience is number one. Our special guest is number two, and our sponsor is number three. And our sponsor knows that, because it's really all about the audience and then the special guest. Don, we have to make you feel loved, dude. If we don't make you feel loved, you're not excited about doing it. So, Randy, any other thought about that?
Nah, not so much. No, I mean, you did a good job. It's easy.
I appreciate that. There's one of the things that, you do.
We're halfway through, by the way. Teddy, I don't know if you wanted to drop the.
Let me care about that third person real quick.
We're halfway through. Don, we do a halfway through sponsor mention. So Teddy, you'll handle that, and then we'll figure out what the heck we're going to do next.
Yeah, so you're on Lunch
Thanks.
Conversations with Randy and Teddy. I'm Teddy, and the dude in the light shirt is Randy, and our special host today is Don Masura. This is our 3rd year anniversary show, and we wouldn't be able to do this without the help of our sponsors, and we're grateful for Blackwell Captive Solutions to be a part of it and help with our show. Randy and I know Carrie. She's been on the show before. They've got 25 plus years of experience in health insurance business. They have a medical stop-loss captive program that helps self-insured businesses who are self-insured for their healthcare insurance. It creates like a shock absorber to make sure the high-dollar claims that you get from your employees doesn't disable you. So reach out to blackwellcaptive.com and let Carrie and her team know that Teddy said hi. So, Randy, back to you.
Well, Don, back to you.
Okay, well, the guys, it reminds me of the early days of television when they would say, and now a word from our sponsor.
That's right.
You know,
That's right.
and that was always important. One of the things that, as you talked, you guys are pretty open, you're friends, and there's a verse, I think it's in the Bible, it says, thy speech betrayeth thee. What have you learned about each other that you really didn't know until you started doing the show? Is there something you said, Randy, I didn't know that about you, or Teddy, I didn't know that about you? Has that ever popped up?
Not really, a little bit. I mean, I got a deeper understanding of Randy's interest in baseball, and a little bit more understanding about Randy's radio show days as a DJ, or do you call yourself a DJ, Randy, or not?
An air personality.
An air personality, excuse me.
There you
go. But again, we've known each other long enough that you know we've had way more conversations than we've had over the last 156 shows. Randy?
Yeah, I forgot the question, but the question was about what have I learned about Teddy? I know he likes fine beer and fine cigars, so I've really honed in on that. And Teddy, I haven't seen him wear it on the show because we're a high class operation. We always wear nice shirts, but I got him a T-shirt that says, "What does it say? I smoke cigars and I know things." Yeah.
I wear it every now and then. You're right. I can't wear it on the show, Randy, because it's against our tire policy.
Well, here's kind of maybe a question that somebody hasn't thought about, and I have.
Yeah.
You know, Winston is either a small big town or a small big whatever it would be, but when what happened the first time that somebody in public sat there and they said, "Hey, aren't you that guy from that luncheon show?" Where they actually recognized you from the show? Did that happen? And if it did, what was it like?
I hear Randy may have a similar experiences, but I'll often hear through social media that I saw your show, and I often hear from people that I already know who will say, I watched your show, or I can't wait to get back to your show. But I haven't had a complete stranger walk up to me and say, "Are you that guy?" And you got to remember, Don, I got thousands of videos on YouTube. So, you know, I'll get called out for those every now and then, but we only have 156 shows on YouTube. Randy?
Yeah. No, I don't get it from this show because the people that watch the stuff are people we know already, typically. So they're not going to come up and recognize like, "Hey, are you that guy?" You know, but I do get that from the stuff that I do with Fox 8 and with the Winston Journal, and they'll see my face. Actually, true story. I was at a SHRM lunch a 3 months ago. It's an HR group. I'm a SHRM chapter member, and I was talking with one of the sponsors there, and lo and behold, one of the other SHRM members came up and said, "I know you." And I looked, and I of course didn't know who they were, and they said, "I know you by your voice because I've done for years have done some radio spots with a local station, talking about job hunting. Didn't see my face, but just the voice."
Yeah.
So it's out there, and the thing, you know, we do it for fun and to inform. And I tell people, Don, I tell them it's a lunch and learn every week. We do a lunch and learn. It's free, and we get to kind of pick the topic and ask the questions. I've learned a lot.
Now, back
really
to back to the notoriety, Randy, I'll get that word right eventually. Remember the special guests that we had pending, who, when we reached out to them, before we talked, that person reached out to others and asked about the show. And when he talked, he goes, yes, I want to be on your show. Because others had told him that this is a class act.
Oh,
well,
checks in the mail.
I've enjoyed, as an audience member, I've enjoyed the times when, Randy, you contacted us from the beach because you really weren't going to be there that day, but you wanted to say hi to everybody. And boy, you broke my heart. You're sitting there with your straw hat and a funny drink with a little umbrella in it, and you were enjoying yourself. And Teddy, I think you've had some trips up there to the Beltway in Washington or Virginia or Pennsylvania where you've done the show. Have you guys ever thought about doing a remote at any time, either from local restaurants or maybe on the road sometime, where you sat there and said, on the road with Randy and Teddy, or Teddy and Randy? Has that ever crossed your thoughts?
I can tell you, and Randy can add to this if he wants to, I can tell you that we have thought about that. And I can tell you we're not ready to disclose how we would like to do that.
Okay.
But we've had some conversations and we're trying to figure out a way if we could do something like that.
Yeah, logistically, it can be a little difficult because I have my regular job, and so there's that, and that's one of the reasons we decided to do this during lunchtime.
Yeah,
was because it wouldn't pull me away so much from my day job, so to speak, but also so that people, even if they're employed, they could still check it out during their lunch hour.
Yeah.
And
now there's
so
also the logistics about if we do that on the road show, Don, then we need to find more ways to help us do that, because that $750,000 RV that we want to use is not cheap.
It's $750,000.
I think we could start a GoFundMe for you.
Or a Patreon page.
See how that goes. In looking at some of these things, sorry, I didn't know this was going to happen, but how did you go about deciding whose name was going to be first in the byline? Teddy and Randy, which one? How'd you guys decide who came first?
Oh, I'll let Randy give you his answer, and then I'll tell you my answer.
It was Teddy's idea. I think I said, what do we want to call it? And he goes, well, let's call it Lunch with Randy and Teddy. And so it just kind of stuck. I think that's the actual true story. Now he's got a made up silly story that I'm sure he'll throw at you, but don't believe him.
Well, I mean, the reality is it is part of the phonetics, how to say it easily. And, and I originally it was Lunch with Randy and Teddy. And I started changing the branding to Lunch Conversations with Randy and Teddy. But the satirical answer to that question is Randy wanted more money. And I said, no. And I said, I'll give you top billing.
Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you, that's a running joke. You talk about how we get along and how we kind of play off each other. I don't get paid. He doesn't get paid. We have a sponsor, and that basically covers the cost of Zoom and some of the other ancillary stuff that goes on. But it's not as though we're making a killing off this thing. This is a passion thing that we do. But it's our running joke that I report to Teddy. So you'll always hear every other week or so. I'll say, so, when am I going to get, he'll say it's not the budget, or we'll talk about it later, but it's a running joke with folks. There's no hierarchy here. We just have a good time and we're good friends. So that's that.
And Randy, I was at an event. The other day. I was here, is upside down. I was at Steel Hands Brewing.
Okay.
In Greensboro.
Well, that's there's a couple of places in Winston that might love to have you in there, but
I was there doing another event, and this dude, Randy, I didn't tell you this. This dude walks up to me and goes, "Hey, do you still work for Randy Wooden?" You know what I said? I said, "Yes, sir, I do. Have you ever seen our show?" And he says, "Yeah, I have seen it."
Yeah. No, he works for his wife. That's Teddy's thing. He works for his wife.
We're all familiar with that feeling. In looking at some things, this may sound kind of simple, but yet it's a very difficult question. You've worked hard, 3 years. You had over 150 shows in the can. You had great guests. People enjoy the show. From a personal standpoint, why do you keep doing the show? What keeps you going?
A couple, three things. One is I enjoy it. I have fun.
Yeah.
And I feel like it has some impact. And as the worm turns and the economy gets worse and we may see a recession, then I think we'll see more of layoffs, and I think we'll see more of that topic, the whole job hunt topic. Take
the black stat.
Go ahead.
What's that?
No, go ahead.
We see, Randy, you got that black satin backdrop, and Teddy, you've got this halo of light and this neutral thing. We're going classy here, guys.
That's natural, Don. That's all natural.
You really classed up, because I do remember the days when I think, Randy, you hung a shower curtain behind yourself to block out the window that was there.
That actually is a curtain that blocks out the light.
Teddy, I don't know if you still got them within range. What do we got? Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
What can I say?
That's on
light. The 23rd floor of Randy's palatial estate.
Yeah. Now I tell you what, when we started the show, I was operating from my kitchen table, and you could see my kitchen in the background, the trash can, refrigerator, and all the stuff on the counter and everything else. And, Teddy, I didn't even have a cushion on. I had these high wooden chairs.
Yeah. Yep.
And no cushion. So again, COVID, they sent everybody home. So my butt got sore just sitting on that thing all day, pecking away on a computer. So Teddy didn't authorize it in the budget. So I had to spend my own money, but I got curtains to block out all the light, bought extra lighting in here to project it. So there you go, Teddy. The things that I do on a shoestring. We don't even have shoestrings. You don't
have shoestrings.
We don't even have shoes.
So Lisa asked about, what are we going to do when we retire? What's our legacy? I'm going to follow Pat Sajak's guidance is what I'm going to do. And I'm going to, start add some of my grandkids, which are referred to as grand wee-wops, as interns to the show.
Right.
And then we'll position them eventually to take my chair, and that is 100% satire. So
Teddy, I got to ask, you used to have some props behind you. I think one was a Rolodex, and there was a manual typewriter. Yep. And then you had the ever-present and ever-important crystal ball. What is the current location of the crystal ball?
Well, because it's so active, it's on my desk.
Go.
It's right here in front of me because I use it every day to figure out what's going on. I've moved my studio, and Randy knows this is a studio because I do recordings every day. I moved it from one office to the next, and I'm in the process of rebuilding my backdrop. So you will see another change coming. But really, nobody wants to look at Teddy all day long. So that's why I had the props there, so you had something else to look at.
Well, I'm asking these questions because I remember that there are some folks who have some of the original props from the Today Show back in the 50s and some of the original desks from the late night shows. And I have it on good authority to know that you will be contacted by the Smithsonian for some of these key things that you've kept, because they've got first dibs on them, so that we can recreate you in Washington. Wow. But here's something that, they say, what is it? The greatest fear is getting in front of a group of people and talking. You've heard that before.
Yeah.
And it's not easy to put yourself in front of a camera. And from that standpoint, do you have any routines or superstitions that you have that you turn to get into character, so to speak, before the show? Or do you just sit there and say, hey, I'm Randy, and this is what you get, and I'm Teddy, and this is what you get, and I don't have to prepare for any of that?
Randy?
Other than a quick trip to the bathroom at about 7 minutes before the hour, that's usually my last little ritual before we do anything. But no, just make sure my water glass is full. And this is like falling off a log. We've been doing this for 3 years, and the guests are different, and so different personalities and all that. But no, I wouldn't say there's really anything that is a superstition or anything. No, I don't think so.
Now Randy does know that we have processes in place, very deliberately created, purposeful processes for producing this show. And that's no joke. I mean, our onboarding, very deliberate. Our show prep work, where we bring those special guests to a phone call with Randy or with I, very purposeful. Otherwise, we wouldn't be, and you've experienced that, Don, and so, and then we have what we call our show notes. So Randy and I both have access to a high dollar expensive tool that we use that, and that is Satire, where all the show notes are in there. So, the start graphic for the sponsor, the sponsor text is in there. The steps that I need to take to get the show started are all in there. And then the talking points of what we're going to talk about are all in there. So it's not a ritual, but if you don't there's no way in the world that Randy and I would have fun if we had to figure out how to freaking do this every week. So processes help.
Yeah, that's and I appreciate you sharing that, because I know that, for instance, some people who look like they've got, I think it was Barbara Streisand, that you think of her as being one of the most well-known and best singers of all time. And they said she has an enormous case of stage fright before she goes on stage. And you said, my gosh, you had thousands of people talk about you being the best. What could you possibly be afraid of? But they're so concerned about delivering their very best that they get sick. So I just want to make sure that we're getting the best of you guys, and we don't want to take those things away from you.
Hey, Don, just throw something in here. I had a conversation with someone here recently about that very topic, about do you ever get nervous or scared or anything like that? And so, and the answer can be yes, if you're not prepared. And that goes back to Teddy's point. Now, if you ask me to get up and speak to thousands of people about open heart surgery, I'm not prepared to do that. And so I would have fear maybe is a good word, or a concern that I would be shown to be inadequate or a fool or an imposter or whatever. But we're the asker of we're not the subject matter experts here. We can be as dumb as a box of rocks, and just all we have to do is tee it up for them, and the guest can take it from there. So that the public speaking part, I look at it more, Teddy, I don't know about you, but just as a conversation. We're just talking. And, and we can have self-deprecating humor. We use that a lot. And we actually had one guest it was the AI. He was talking about artificial intelligence. He said, Teddy, you're smarter than you look.
I remember that.
Remember that?
It's nice to know you guys have got a thick skin.
Yeah.
We skipped through something that's really very essential, and you were talking about, where do you go to get the people who are guests, and you said, well, we work really hard, and some of the folks that we've had on the show, said, hey, there's a couple people I really think that you should have on the show. So you rely on that. Mm-hmm. For the fact that we've got a big audience today, and to keep this thing rolling for another 3, if people have somebody that they know might be in town, and I'm thinking about, I was in one of our local restaurants about a year ago, and all of a sudden people were making a commotion. They kept going over this guy who was having lunch. And, Randy, I think you'd appreciate this. This guy happened to be Dennis Eckersley.
Okay? The Eck.
And, Hall of Fame pitcher, right?
Yep.
And I recognized him as a Hall of Fame. I couldn't remember his name, but he was being so nice to people. But he happened to be in town, and he was having lunch at one of our nice local restaurants. If somebody has an idea or is aware of somebody who's in town that they may have a connection with, to be able to get to you guys, Teddy, maybe you could put that in the chat box or not, but how do people contact you so that you can have these things in a prompt to be able to do a good job of booking them?
Well, I'll give you 2. This is an important conversation, because we often get people who say, oh, Teddy, you need to bring a guy in who knows how to paint. You need to bring a guy in that knows how to bind books or whatever. You need to bring someone in who does this. And those are great ideas, but we can't execute on that. what we really would love to have and be so much appreciative of our audience and anybody else who stumbles across an idea, we need them to introduce us to that guy. Send, Tiger Woods an email, copy Randy or I on the email and say, Tiger, you need to talk with Teddy. Dropping names doesn't help us. We can't, because we don't know Tiger Woods. Okay. But if someone has an idea, and our email address is on every invite you get, every reminder, from Zoom, our email address is on that. And most people know how to find Teddy and Randy, but introductions are powerful.
So have them actually make the introduction, not just refer you to those folks.
Right.
But make it happen.
Yeah, I mean, I knocked on Megan Trainor's window one night to talk to her because someone said she should be on the show. And let me tell you, it took forever to get out of that jail. But go ahead, back to you, Don.
Well, I was just going to say, too, when it comes to a job search and you're networking with people, if Teddy just say, I go to Teddy, hey, I'm in a job search, who should I be talking to? And you go, well, Don Masura, reach out to Don. Well, if I just reach out to you by email or phone call and you don't know me at all and Teddy hasn't introduced us, what's the likelihood you're going to take my call or return my message? Yeah. On the other hand, if he emails you, copies me on it and says, hey, would you give this guy a few minutes? Chances are you're more apt to talk to me. In fact, I just did that today with a client, introduced my client to someone I know in business. And here again, that doesn't guarantee that they'll get together, but it sure increases the odds.
Yeah,
it really does.
I appreciate that because that's an important part so we can keep this rolling for another 3 years. We're just about, I think, getting close to end comments, but what feature or segment would you like, or maybe not, that you'd like to add to the show over the next so many months that maybe, to keep it fresh, or that you said, hey, I'd like to try this. Can you give us some insight into that?
I got a couple of fun ideas.
He's got some ideas that we're playing around with.
I did this a couple 3 weeks ago, just out of the blue, and I've done it 2 or 3 other times over the years. I can't remember with what guests, but it's sort of what I'll call the get to know you, or we could call it the lightning round or whatever. And so whether it's something as common as 2 truths and a lie about you, or a lightning round, maybe 5 or 6 quick hit questions. What's your favorite this, or, paper or plastic, or, whatever the question might be, just as a fun thing, just to kind of lighten it up as we begin to wrap up. But Teddy, I don't know, other areas.
I don't know. I mean, we got to play with those ideas. Those are good ideas, but something else we have to always remember is, what does our audience want? I mean, they know our style. Christy likes that idea. That they know our style. They know our type of special guest. Maybe our audience has some ideas that we should consider, and so that would definitely be worth us listening to and hearing those ideas. So,
if I've listened to you right, share the information, share the nature of their relationship, be open to making a personal introduction, but out of respect for you guys, let you have the room to make the final decision. Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah, because here's a little bit of satire but truth, but Randy and I ain't got no bosses. No, I mean, go back to the original statement, Don. This show is for our audience. We need to know what our audience wants, and we need to try to give it to them if we can.
Well, anything that you wanted to say, Randy?
Well, just Lisa had a question. What was your first job? And I forget if it was my first or second. I think my first job where I actually got paid, other than shoveling driveways and stuff like that, where I actually got a paycheck kind of thing. I think I was a dishwasher in a restaurant. So that there was that, and I love. They used to have these cinnamon rolls.
Yeah.
And when they would put them out, just like you could get bread and rolls, right? They had these yummy cinnamon rolls. Well, if they didn't get eaten,
Lordy,
the basket would come back, and what we were supposed to do was slice them up in little slices, and then they put them in a broiler or something to kind of get them crispy. And so we would sneak as much of those as we could when nobody was looking. So
it's like a Lucille Ball thing. Hey, here's something that I think Randy knows this.
Yeah.
My very first real job was I worked for a company called Titus Trash, and Titus Trash had two divisions. The first division, I picked up trash in the morning on a trash truck. This is not a trash truck, which is all electronic, mechanical. I had to carry the barrel and dump it myself. That was in the mornings. And in the afternoon, I delivered caskets just in time. True story.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
hey, Don, thanks so much for running this show today. We really appreciate you taking time, and you ask some questions that kind of didn't catch us off guard, but aren't the kind of questions that we get every day. And so I really appreciate you doing that. Teddy, we don't really have a story to tell, I suppose, other than just to say thank you, Teddy, for hanging out. We kind of joked that, our shows have lasted longer than some marriages. I mean, 3 years.
Yeah,
and,
I'm with you, buddy. I appreciate that you and I get together, and for me, it's always fun. And again, I love our audience showing up, and Don, I love our special guests, and in your context as a temporary host. And I'm also grateful for Blackwell Captive Solutions for sponsoring the show. They're great people. They're all about helping organizations who are self-insured, creating ownership, peace of mind, price stability. Reach out to Blackwell Captive. If you know someone who is self-insured, let them know. Randy, who's up next week?
Yeah. Catherine Perry returns to our show. She was on about the same time last year. She is the executive director for Leadership Winston-Salem, and they're in their recruitment phase right now as they're recruiting for the class of 2024. So she'll talk about that, of course, but also, what does Leadership Winston do? And what's the value for you as somebody who participates in that and getting involved in the community? And I got to tell you, Leadership Winston is local here in Winston, but most cities of any size have something similar, whether it's through their Chamber of Commerce or elsewhere. So it's not just us in Winston. This applies everywhere in the country. So join us next week. That'll be on the 19th. Yeah. We'll do it. And same back.
Guys, can I have 5 seconds?
Sure.
5 seconds?
Yeah.
Yes. On behalf of the audience and the virtually thousands of folks that have either had lunch with you or just sat here and said, by gosh, I'm glad I tuned in. On behalf of all those folks, we thank you for the extra effort that you went through, the preparation, and thank you.
Thank you, buddy.
Great. Thank you, Don.
I'll see everybody later next week. Bye-bye.
All right. See you now.